Good morning. My name is Ian Gehris, Sales Supervisor at Central States Industrial. Thank you for joining us for this demonstration. If at all in this time you have some questions, make sure that you enter those into the chat on the side of your screen. We've set aside a few minutes at the end to address those. Before we begin, a little bit about Central States Industrial, CSI. We engineer, design, build hygienic processing systems. We're also a stocking distributor of many of your hygienic processing components, pumps, valves, tubing, fitting, all for the food, dairy, beverage, and pharmaceutical industries. Now, I'm sure that you saw the title of this demonstration is the top 5 ways to save money when using IBC Totes. And we're going to review those ways by taking a closer look at 2 of CSI's tote solutions, the TruClean ToteTilter here to my right, and the TruClean ToteCleaner here behind me. But before we get into those, it's important to understand that as a processor or a plant personnel, you're frequently transferring fluid to and from using IBC totes, intermediate bulk containers. Much like the one beside me, very often caged poly, sometimes stainless steel, and most often in a 275-gallon size. Now, as common as these are in our industries, they still seem to present their own set of challenges and frustrations. Namely, first, how do you get all of the product out of the tote safely and quickly? Secondly, how do you efficiently and consistently clean the totes once they are emptied? So let's start with the ToteTilter here to my right. First, what is it? The ToteTilter is a stainless steel platform on which you would load an IBC tote, and as your fluid level begins to drain, the tote will automatically incline using compressed air. That allows you to gather all of your media on the valve side of the tote, which allows you for a more thorough evacuation. And that's tip number 1, get all of the product out of your tote. Whether you're sending an ingredient to a batching tank or sending a paint or a coating to a sprayer or applicator, you've probably noticed there's always a little bit of product left in the bottom of the tote. Depending on how viscous it is, it could be half a gallon, could be 5 gallons sometimes. And I doubt I need to belabor the point. Anything you leave in the tote is money left inside of the tote. So that's tip number 1, get all of the product out of your tote. Tip number 2, eliminate safety hazards. You might be thinking, well, yeah, we've noticed this as a problem, we've come up with some solutions, and we're able to drain the tote. We've seen lots of those different ways. 2 immediately come to mind. First is the block of wood. As soon as the tote is light enough that you're not going to throw out your back by lifting it, you would lift the tote, put the block of wood underneath, and you're draining, good to go. Additionally, we've seen totes loaded onto a forklift, strap it to secure it, and then use the forks to tilt the tote forward. Again, we've seen it, they seem to work, but one main concern comes up with both of these homegrown solutions, and that is safety. As you can imagine, both of those very precarious solutions can present the opportunity for an OSHA recordable or some sort of safety incident. Now, I understand very often in processing facilities, new, safer manufacturing practices are hard to roll out. The ToteTilter makes it pretty easy. At most, you may be seeing 2 or 3 additional steps to an existing SOP. Simply load the tote onto the platform, hook it up as you normally would, and charge the system with air. Here we're using the optional foot valve. Included with the ToteTilter would be the hand valve, both of which are going to keep any hands or fingers away from moving parts or pinch points. Additional safety features include these mechanical stops, these at the front which prevent the tote from wanting to slide forward, these on the side which prevent a hyperextension of our 5 or 10 degree angle. We can also offer pre-drilled mounting holes on the base of the system if secured floor mounting is required in your process. So that's just 2 of our money-saving tips. Get all of the product out of your tote and reduce safety hazards by just looking at the ToteTilter. We still have one product to cover, the ToteCleaner behind me. And before we get into our next 3 money-saving tips, let's take a look at the ToteCleaner. So first, what is it? The ToteCleaner is a pumping system that's going to deliver a high-pressure washing fluid to a custom lid and dip tube assembly that's going to drive a rotating spray device or jet head inside of this tote. That's going to allow us to dislodge any soils on the inner walls of the tote. It's also going to allow us to apply detergents or soaps. At that point, it can be recirculated through the system or sent to drain. So I find the best way to understand what's happening here at this pump and this small valve manifold is to think of it in terms of a simplified CIP or clean in place cycle. Well, what do I mean by that? Let's get down here and we'll identify the components here. We've got our tote connection here at the front, our drain valve, recirculation valve, and freshwater inlet valve. So let's imagine in front of me I have a heavily soiled tote that's just gotten through the production floor and we need to clean it. So we'll start out with a preliminary rinse to dislodge those residuals. So in order to do that, we'll ensure first that our drain valve is open, our recirculation valve is closed, and at this point we'll open our fresh water and start the system. Now what's happening here, fresh water's coming in, going through the pump, through the spray device, out the tote and directly into drain. And once you're satisfied with the amount of soils that you've dislodged, we can go ahead and terminate our preliminary rinse by turning off the pump, turning off our fresh water, and at this point you would allow the soiled rinse to fully drain. Now we could move on to our detergent or our caustic wash. In order to do that, you would charge the system with some water, which here our circuit's already flooded. We could come over here, remove the adapter, manually add in our detergent or caustic, replace the adapter, and begin our recirculated wash. And to do that, we simply ensure our drain valve is closed, recirculation valve is open, freshwater valve is also closed, and we'll start. And again, to explain what's happening here, drain valve's closed, freshwater inlet is closed, and our pumping system is recirculating this caustic wash that is in the system. Once you've reached your 5 or 10 minute validated clean and you're ready to start flushing the system of the caustic, we'll open up our fresh water, close our recirculation valves, and open up our drain. And in this step, this caustic flush or this final rinse, we're pushing all of the caustic out of our hoses, out of our spray device, taking the detergent off the inside walls and sending it to drain. At this point, we'll ensure that our freshwater in is closed, recirculation valve is closed, and we'll leave our drain open so that we can get that final rinse out. And since the system is on our ToteTilter, we can utilize that to finish our drain. So that's a really quick look at our tote cleaner. So let's move on. Tip number 3, eliminate cleaning fees. Now maybe you've never thought about cleaning your tote. Your distributor comes, picks them up, takes them away for free. But have you ever asked, can you get some money back if you return those totes totally clean? Or maybe you're getting penalized if you don't return them totally clean because there's something rancid or toxic inside of these. And we've seen as much as $25, $50 per tote penalty from your distributor for not returning them clean. And no matter how many totes you use in a week, you might be surprised to find some of our clients have seen a return on investment as little as 4 weeks. And that's just by eliminating cleaning fees, not considering any of the other money-saving tips we're sharing with you today. So that's tip number 3, eliminate cleaning fees and penalties from your tote supplier. Tip number 4, stop wasting money on chemical by sending it to drain. So many plants we've seen, they do have a method, they do have a way in place to clean these totes. Oftentimes we see people either fully filling them and sending 275 gallons to drain at a time, or they're using a pressure washer and cleaning through the opening at the top. Very often those pressure washers have direct chemical injection. And while that's pretty effective, you're immediately sending that chemical down to drain to the municipality. By utilizing the tote cleaner behind me, you have the opportunity to circulate that detergent or that caustic and fully use the cleaning power of it, also fully degrade it before you send it back to the municipality. So that's tip number 4, stop wasting money by sending chemical directly to drain. And tip number 5 is free up an operator to do something else. We've seen plants spending upwards of 100 hours per week cleaning all of their totes. I want you to think for a second, what could you do with those additional hours? Has production increased to 120, 130% because of increase in demand over these last 6 months? Could production use those hours? Have you enacted additional sanitization steps or cleaning steps in your facility by keeping up with common areas, locker rooms, lunchrooms, or wiping down doorknobs to help prevent the spread of COVID-19 in your facility? Could sanitation use those hours to keep your facility safe? So that's tip number 5, free up an operator to do something else. And there you have it. There's our 5 ways to save money when using IBC Totes. We appreciate you for coming along on this demonstration. I do see we have some questions that have come into the chat. We'll direct our attention to those. And if you have any questions still, make sure that you're entering those and we'll try to get to them. Okay, it looks like we've got a handful of questions coming through. Lynette asked, I have a 330-gallon IBC tote. Will it work for those? Both of these systems, yes, the ToteCleaner will work for a 330-gallon IBC tote, as well as the tilter. Now, something to keep in mind if you get into more custom stainless steel tote sizes as they get taller, we would most certainly want to have a more thorough conversation about that to make sure that it can safely be tilted up and that we can effectively clean it with the device that we have given the height of those custom. But 330-gallon IBC tote, yes, it will work for those. Other question, Jamie asks, I use Transtore IBC totes as fermenters. Can I use this cart to CIP them? Certainly, we've seen this happen a few times. Being that it's a fermenter, I would imagine there's been some modifications, maybe some thermal wells, additional tri-clamp inlets and outlets. So we would still want to have a conversation about that vessel so that we can ensure we're going to get it clean, given the contents of the fermenter, as well as any places we might get shadowing and might have a hard time to get the wash fluid through. But we've seen this done before, but we would certainly want to have a more thorough conversation about it. Charles asks, will the tilter work with a 55-gallon drum? Yes, it will. We've done this a handful of times. Essentially, we just recess some angle iron inside of the frame. That way it gives the drum somewhere to be cradled and keep it from rolling around. And they're down low enough where if you are not using it for a drum, you can still use it for an IBC tote. We've done that before, yes. So you can use the tilter for a 55-gallon drum. How long does it usually take to clean a tote? Lynette, thank you for that question. It really depends on the application. If this is just a wetting down of the surface so that it can be stored away, maybe you're putting a sanitizer on it so you can put it in a warehouse, that may take a minute. You're going to spend more time probably connecting the hoses than you would actually wetting down the surface. But if it's real grimy, and depending on what sort of hot water you're using for it or what sort of chemical, and we've seen totes take 5, 10, 15 minutes to clean the nastiest ones. So it's gonna depend on a few variables. And looks like our last question that I've seen is from Andrew. Can the pumping system power a rotary jet head as well as a rotary spray head? So in this right now, what we've got in here is a rotary spray head, the Gamma Jet multi-midget, 360-degree multi-midget. And that has a certain motor configuration over here at the pump cart. And if you're going to be using it to power a jet head, which is another option we have for the tote cleaner, we would just modify appropriately. I believe we put a 7.5 horse motor on it. But yes, both jet heads and rotary spray heads, we would just want to have that conversation so that we can quote correctly. Thanks again for joining us, and be sure if we didn't get to one of your questions, reach out, drop us a line, send us an email, and we will get back to you. Thank you.